For 8 seasons, Game of Thrones built up the Night King as this unstoppable force of death marching toward Westeros. Millions of viewers watched as he killed dragons, shattered walls, and led an army of the undead. And when the Battle of Winterfell finally happened, we all thought we knew what he wanted. He was after Bran Stark, right? The three-eyed raven, the living memory of mankind. But here's the thing, the showrunners confirmed something that completely changes how we understand the Night King's entire mission, and somehow, most fans missed it. The Night King wasn't after a person, he was after something much bigger, and much more terrifying. Let me explain. When you watch the show, especially in Season 8, Episode 2, Bran literally spells it out. He says the Night King wants to erase this world, and that he is its memory. On the surface, that seems straightforward. Kill Bran, kill the memory, end humanity. But that's not the full story. Because Bran also says something else that's easy to overlook. He tells everyone that the Night King has tried before, many times, with many three-eyed ravens. Think about that for a second, many three-eyed ravens, not just one, not just Bran. The Night King has been hunting down every single person who ever held that title for thousands of years. We even saw him succeed once in Season 6 when he killed the previous three-eyed raven, that ancient man woven into the weirwood tree roots in the cave beyond the wall. He walked right in there, shattered the magical protections, and destroyed him without hesitation. So what is the Night King really after? It's not just Bran Stark, it's not personal revenge. It's not even about stopping one powerful green seer from interfering with his plans. The showrunners, David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, made this clear in their behind-the-scenes commentary. They said the Night King doesn't think of himself as evil. He thinks of himself as death. And his goal is total erasure. Not just killing people, erasing them, making it as if humanity never existed at all. That's why the three-eyed ravens are his priority targets. Because they are the living archives of human history, they can see everything that's ever happened, everywhere, at any point in time. They're not just individuals with magical powers. They're walking, talking libraries of human experience, human achievement, human existence, and the Night King wants to burn every page of that library. In the books, this concept goes even deeper. George R.R. Martin writes about the children of the forest and the first men, and how the weirwood trees themselves hold memories. The faces carved into them aren't just decoration. They're connected to the old gods, to the greenseers, to the entire magical network that records history. When the first men came to Westeros, they chopped down these sacred trees and slaughtered the children of the forest. That's when the children made their desperate move. They created the White Walkers to defend themselves. But here's where it gets really interesting. The children created the Night King by plunging a dragonglass dagger into the heart of a first man, bound to a weirwood tree. We see this in Bran's vision in Season 6, Episode 5. The man screams as his eyes turn that icy blue, and boom, the first White Walker is born. The children thought they were creating a weapon they could control, a guardian against mankind. They were wrong. The White Walkers turned on their creators, the Night King developed his own agenda, and after thousands of years, that agenda became clear. He didn't just want to conquer the living, he wanted to destroy the very concept of life, memory, and history itself. To create an endless night where nothing grows, nothing lives, and nothing is remembered. Samwell Tarly actually explains this perfectly in that same strategy meeting in Season 8. He says death is about forgetting and being forgotten. If nobody remembers where we've been or what we've done, we're not humans anymore, we're just animals, and Bran's memories don't come from books. They're not stories that can be burned or lost, they're visions of actual events, witnessed through the weirwood network, through Greensight, through the accumulated knowledge of every three-eyed raven who ever lived. That's what makes Bran so dangerous to the Night King, and that's why Bran was never really the target. The target was what he represents. The target was memory itself. Now, in the books, this gets even more complicated because George R.R. Martin hasn't actually introduced a character called the Night King. There's a legend about something called the Night's King, who was supposedly the 13th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. This guy fell in love with a woman with skin white as the moon and eyes like blue stars. He took her as his queen, declared himself king, and ruled the Night Fort for 13 years, making sacrifices to the White Walkers and committing terrible atrocities. Eventually, the king in the north and the king beyond the wall had to team up to bring him down. After his defeat, all records of him were destroyed, and his name was forbidden and forgotten. Old Nan, the servant at Winterfell who tells Bran all these stories, suggests that the Night's King might have actually been a Stark. Specifically, the brother of Brandon the Breaker, the king who defeated him. The show streamlined all of this. They created the Night King as a physical character we could see and fear, giving him a clear origin story and a definable goal. But the core concept remained the same. This is an ancient force that wants to erase humanity from existence, starting with its memories. When Vladimir Furtick, the actor who played the Night King in seasons 6 through 8, gave an interview, he let slip something really interesting. He said the Night King has a specific target he wants to kill. He mentioned that moment at Hardhome when Jon Snow was on the boat and the Night King raised his arms, bringing all the dead wildlings back as whites. Furtick said there would be a similar but even stronger moment between the Night King and Jon in season 8. A lot of fans assumed this meant Jon was the target. But that doesn't make sense when you look at the Night King's actions. At Hardhome, he doesn't chase Jon, he lets him escape. During the White Hunt Beyond the Wall in season 7, the Night King doesn't go after Jon directly. He kills Daenerys Dragon Viserion with that insane ice spear throw. And at the Battle of Winterfell, when Jon tries to reach the God's Wood to protect Bran, the Night King literally raises all the dead bodies around him to block his path. He doesn't want to fight Jon, he wants to get to Bran. Because Bran is where the memory is, Bran is the current vessel for everything the Night King wants to destroy. But even that's not quite right, because if Bran dies, there will eventually be another three-eyed raven. The power passes on. The children of the forest trained these greenseers for thousands of years. It's a position, a role, a function in the world. Killing Bran doesn't end it, it just delays it. Unless you kill everyone, unless you turn the entire world into an army of the dead, where no children are born, no trees grow, and no new memories can ever be formed. That's the endless night Bran talks about, not just a really long winter. A permanent state of death where time itself stops meaning anything because nothing changes, nothing grows, nothing lives. The Night King was created as a weapon against humanity, but he evolved into something far worse. He became the concept of oblivion, not death as a natural part of life, but death as the end of everything, death as silence, death as forgetting. David Benioff spelled this out pretty clearly. He said they don't think of the Night King as evil. They think of him as death itself, and that's what he wants, for all of us. The Night King was created to destroy, and that programming went way beyond what the children of the forest intended. He wants to fulfill his purpose completely, total destruction, nothing left behind. Not even the memory that anything ever existed. This explains so many of his actions throughout the series. Why does he arrange the bodies in those weird spiral patterns? Because he's mocking the symbols of the children of the forest, throwing their own magic back at them. Why does he turn Craster's sons into White Walkers? Because he's building his own twisted version of civilization, one where everything is dead and frozen. Why does he kill the dragon Viserion and turn him into an undead mount? Because he needs the power to bring down the wall, the last barrier preventing him from erasing humanity's memory. And why does he personally march into the God's Wood at Winterfell to face Bran? Because that's the mission, that's what he's always been after. The living memory must die first, then everyone else can follow. When Arya kills him, when she drops that Valyrian steel dagger and catches it with her other hand before plunging it into his chest, it's not just a cool action moment. It's the fundamental defeat of his entire purpose. Death itself is killed, the endless night is prevented, and humanity's memory survives. A lot of fans were disappointed that it was Arya who killed the Night King instead of Jon Snow. They wanted the big hero moment, the prophesied prince who was promised, the epic sword fight between ice and fire, but that kind of misses the point. The Night King wasn't defeated by prophecy or by strength. He was defeated by a trained assassin who knows death intimately, who has literally served in the House of Black and White, who understands what death is and how it works. Arya's teacher, Syrio Farrell, always told her, "What do we say to the god of death?" And she would answer, "Not today." The Night King was the god of death, marching on Winterfell to claim everyone, and Arya said not today, not ever. Because that's what she's been training for this entire time, even if she didn't know it. The showrunners confirmed they decided 3 years before the episode aired that Arya would be the one to kill the Night King. Which means all of Season 7 and most of Season 8 were written with that ending in mind. All the pieces were being put in place, Arya being at Winterfell, Arya getting the Valyrian steel dagger that was used in the attempt on Bran's life back in Season 1, Arya learning to move silently, to strike from shadows, to be no one and everyone. Melisandre even told her back in Season 3 that she would shut many eyes forever. Brown eyes, green eyes, and blue eyes. At the time, everyone thought that meant she'd kill a bunch of people, and she did. But the blue eyes? Those were the Night King's eyes, that was the prophecy that actually mattered. Here's what's really fascinating about all of this: the Night King's real target wasn't a person, it was an idea. The idea that humanity matters, that our stories matter, that what we've done and who we've been deserves to be remembered. He wanted to erase that idea from existence, to make it so that nothing we ever did meant anything because nobody would be left to remember it. And in a weird way, that makes the Night King more terrifying than any other villain in Game of Thrones. Cersei wants power, the Boltons wanted cruelty, Littlefinger wanted chaos, but the Night King wanted nothing, literally nothing. That's why Bran says he wants to erase this world, because in the Night King's perfect world, there is no world. There's just frozen death, forever, with no memory that anything else ever existed. The children of the forest learned this lesson the hard way. When you create a weapon, you better make sure you can control it. Because once it develops its own purpose, its own intelligence, its own goals, you might find yourself fighting against the very thing you made to protect you. The children created the White Walkers to save their forests and their people from the First Men. Instead, they created something that wanted to destroy all forests, all people, all life, everywhere, forever. By the time of the Long Night, thousands of years before the events of the show, the children had to team up with the very humans they'd been fighting to push the White Walkers back. They helped build the wall. They gave the Night's Watch 100 obsidian daggers every year to defend against the threat they'd created. They spent millennia trying to fix their mistake. And they almost succeeded. The White Walkers were pushed so far north that they became legends. Things that mothers told their children to scare them into behaving. The Night's Watch forgot what they were really guarding against. The wall stood for so long that people forgot why it needed to stand at all. But the Night King never forgot, he never stopped planning. He waited in the land of always winter, building his army, turning the dead into whites, creating more White Walkers. He was patient because time meant nothing to him, he was already dead, he had forever. Until Arya Stark said not today. When the Night King shatters into ice, it's not just his body that breaks, it's his entire army. Every White Walker explodes into frozen shards. Every white collapses to the ground, finally allowed to rest. Even the undead dragon Viserion falls from the sky, all of it ends in an instant because the Night King wasn't just the leader of the army of the dead. He was the source. He was the first White Walker, created by the children of the forest, and every other White Walker was created by him or his lieutenants. When he died, the magic that animated all of them died with him. And the memory of humanity? The three-eyed raven? The living archive of everything we've ever been and done? Bran survived. Which means the Night King failed in his ultimate mission. He didn't erase humanity, he didn't create an endless night. He didn't destroy our memories and make it as if we never existed. Instead, he became a memory himself, another chapter in the history of Westeros. Another story that Bran the Broken, the three-eyed raven, the eventual king of the Six Kingdoms, carries with him forever. That's the ultimate irony of the Night King's defeat. He wanted to erase memory, and he ended up becoming one. A cautionary tale about the dangers of creating weapons you can't control. A reminder that death is not the opposite of life, but a part of it. A story about how humanity survives not through strength or prophecy, but through memory, resilience, and the willingness to say not today when oblivion comes knocking. So the next time you watch Game of Thrones and you see the Night King marching south with his army, remember what he's really after. It's not Bran Stark the person. It's not vengeance or conquest or even survival. It's the complete and total erasure of everything humanity has ever been, starting with the one thing that proves we existed at all. And that's why the three-eyed ravens have always been his target. Not because they're powerful. Not because they can see the future or warg into animals or witness events from anywhere in the world. But because they remember. They carry the weight of every human life, every human choice, every human moment in history. They're the proof that we were here. That we mattered. That our stories deserve to be told. The Night King wanted to destroy that proof, to make it so that when the sun finally rose again after his endless night, there would be nobody left who remembered that humanity ever existed at all. And he came terrifyingly close to succeeding, if Theon hadn't bought those extra few seconds protecting Bran. If Melisandre hadn't reminded Arya of her prophecy. If Beric hadn't sacrificed himself one last time to save Arya from the Whites. If the Hound hadn't protected her when she was overwhelmed. Any one of those moments goes differently, and the Night King wins. Memory dies, humanity is erased, the endless night begins. But it didn't happen, because a girl had no name, and then she remembered her name was Arya Stark of Winterfell, and she went home, and she saved the world. Not by being the strongest or the most prophesied or the most noble, but by being fast, and smart, and willing to say not today to death itself. That's the story of the Night King's real target, not a person, not even a title, but the very idea that we matter, that our lives mean something, that we deserve to be remembered. And in the end, memory won. If you found this deep dive into the Night King's true motivations interesting, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more Game of Thrones analysis. Let me know in the comments what you think about the Night King's real target. Did the show do justice to this threat? Could the books handle it differently? What other Game of Thrones mysteries should I cover next? Hit that notification bell so you don't miss future videos, and I'll see you in the next one.